The wheat fields of Elysium 7 stretched golden under twin suns. Children ran between the tall stalks, their laughter carried by warm winds across the valley. This world, nicknamed Bright Meadows by its founders, had become home to 3 million humans over 30 years. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. Kang Tae-woo stood on his porch watching his granddaughter Yuna chase butterflies with her friends. He was 68 years old, a retired admiral who had traded warships for farming equipment. His wife had passed 5 years ago, and now Yuna was his entire world. She was 7, with bright eyes and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. "Grandfather!" Yuna called out, waving at him. "Look, I caught one!" Tae-woo smiled and walked toward her. The butterfly sat on her small palm, wings opening and closing slowly. These moments were why he had retired. These moments were why he had chosen this quiet world far from Earth. In the colony's main town, Director Park Sora was reviewing supply reports. She was 42, practical and caring, the kind of leader who knew every family by name. Her assistant, young Nari, was preparing for the afternoon classes at the Children's Learning Center. Nari was 25, a teacher who had come to Bright Meadows because she believed children deserved to grow up seeing stars, not city walls. 800,000 children registered for the summer festival, Nari said, looking at her tablet. "We need more decorations." Sora laughed. "We always need more decorations." At the medical center, Dr. Han Mira was giving vaccinations to a line of giggling children. She was gentle with them, always having candy ready after each shot. Mira had been a combat medic once, but like Tae-woo, she had chosen peace. Her clinic walls were covered with drawings from her young patients. None of them knew that 12 light years away, death was coming. The Valorian Empire had ruled 400 star systems for 10,000 years. 12 alien species had joined together under one banner, conquering and absorbing lesser races into their collective. They were powerful beyond measure. Their fleets numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Their technology was ancient and refined, and they saw humans as insects. High Commander Dreth sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. He was a massive creature, 8 feet tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Valori, had founded the Empire and considered themselves gods among mortals. He had received orders from the Imperial Council: bring the humans into the fold or break them. "They refused our generous offer," Dreth said to his officers. "They wished to remain independent." He made a sound that was laughter. Independent. These soft creatures who cry over their dead. These weak beings who let emotions rule them. "What are your orders, High Commander?" his second asked. Dreth's eyes, black as void, gleamed with cruel pleasure. "We will teach them what happens to those who refuse the Empire. Set course for their outer colony, the one they call Bright Meadows." 3 days later, the sky over Elysium 7 turned dark with ships. Tae-woo was in town buying seeds when the shadows fell. He looked up and felt his blood turn to ice. 50 warships hung above the colony like metal mountains. He knew those designs. Valorian Empire. He started running toward Yuna's school. The broadcast came through every speaker, every screen, every device on the planet. A Valorian officer appeared, speaking in translated human language. "People of this colony, you will gather in designated areas. Adults will be processed separately from children. Resistance will result in immediate death. You have 1 hour." Panic spread like wildfire. Parents grabbed their children. People ran in every direction. But there was nowhere to go. The ships had surrounded the entire planet. Escape pods were shot down before they could break atmosphere. Director Sora tried to organize evacuation to the underground shelters. But Valorian soldiers were already landing. They were efficient and brutal. Any adult who refused to separate from their children was killed on the spot. Sora watched a father gunned down for holding his son too tight. She screamed, but soldiers grabbed her and dragged her away. Dr. Mira tried to hide children in her medical center. The Valorians found them in minutes. They pulled the crying children from under beds and inside cabinets. Mira fought them. She broke one soldier's arm before they shot her dead. Nari was in the learning center when soldiers burst through the doors. She had 40 children with her. Without thinking, she opened a maintenance hatch and pushed as many children through as she could. "Run," she whispered. "Run and don't look back." 17 made it through before the soldiers found the hatch. Teiwu never reached the school. A Valorian squad stopped him at a checkpoint. He was forced into a holding area with thousands of other adults. Through the fence, he could see children being loaded onto transport ships. He saw Yuna's pink backpack in the crowd. He screamed her name until his voice broke. Then the broadcasts began. The Valorian Empire had set up cameras. They wanted every human in the galaxy to watch. They wanted this to be a lesson that would echo through centuries. High Commander Dreth appeared on screen, standing before rows of human children. 800,000 of them gathered in a massive holding area on the planet's surface. They were crying, calling for their parents, huddled together in fear. "Humanity," Dreth announced. "You were given a choice. You chose wrong. Let this be your lesson. Let this break your spirit forever." What happened next was broadcast live to Earth, to every human colony, to every ship and station where humans lived. The screaming lasted for 3 hours. When it ended, 800,000 children lay dead. The youngest was 2 years old. The oldest was 12. Every one of them murdered while the galaxy watched. In the holding area, Teiwu collapsed to his knees. He had seen Yuna's face in the crowd before the feed cut. He had watched her looking for him, crying, reaching out her small hands for a grandfather who could not save her. Something broke inside him that day. Something broke inside every human who witnessed that horror. And something else awakened. For 72 hours, humanity went completely silent. No diplomatic messages, no military communications, no civilian broadcasts. Every channel that had carried human voices went dark. Every embassy closed its doors. Every human ship in alien ports powered down and sat motionless. The Valorian Empire celebrated. High Commander Dreth received honors from the Imperial Council. They toasted to their victory, convinced that they had broken humanity forever. The other species in the galaxy watched with unease, but none dared speak against the Empire. "The humans have learned their place," Dreth announced to his officers. "They will come crawling to us soon, begging to join as a protected species. We have taught them what true power looks like." He could not have been more wrong. On Earth, behind the silence, something was happening. Every military base activated. Every retired soldier received a single message on their personal device. "Report immediately." Every shipyard that had been running at half capacity suddenly lit up with around-the-clock activity. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects were reassigned within hours. Admiral Kang Tae-woo, still on Elysium 7, had been rescued by a human stealth ship that slipped through the Valorian blockade. He sat in a dark room on the transport, staring at a photograph of Yuna. His hands did not shake. His eyes did not cry anymore. Something cold had replaced the warmth in his heart. When the ship docked at Earth's primary military station, he walked straight to the command center. They were expecting him. The youngest admiral in human history, Fleet Admiral Bora, met him at the door. She was 34, with short black hair and eyes that held the same cold fire as his own. She had lost her younger brother in the massacre. "Admiral Kang," she said, saluting, "we need you." "I know," he replied. "Show me what we have." What humanity had was something the galaxy had never seen. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in vaults sealed since the end of the last human war, weapons waited. These were not ordinary weapons. These were creations so terrible that humanity's leaders had agreed to lock them away forever. They had hoped these vaults would never be opened. Dr. Wu Hana, the lead weapons researcher, stood before the massive vault doors. She was 60 years old, brilliant and haunted. She had designed some of what waited inside. She had spent decades hoping her work would never be used. "Are you certain?" she asked Fleet Admiral Bora. Bora's face showed no emotion. 800,000 children, Dr. Wu. They killed 800,000 children. Hana nodded slowly. She pressed her palm to the scanner. The vault doors opened with a deep groan of metal. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of old machinery and sealed spaces. Inside were rows upon rows of weapons platforms, each covered in warning labels and restricted access codes. There were the Lazarus swarms, self-replicating machines that could consume entire asteroid belts and use the material to build more of themselves. There were planet crackers, weapons that could split a world in half. And there were the grief cannons, devices that did not kill but trapped their victims in endless neural loops of their worst memories. "We called them the last resort," Hana said quietly. "We built them during the colony wars, when we almost destroyed ourselves. We swore we would never use them." "That promise died with our children," Bora replied. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Captain Gina, who had lost her twin sons in the massacre, reported to her ship and found her crew already assembled. They had painted names on the hull, 800,000 names, in letters so small they covered every inch of metal. Fleet Commander Dae-ho, whose entire extended family had been on Elysium 7, took command of the largest battle group humanity had ever assembled. His flagship was renamed that day. They called it 800,000 Voices. Meanwhile, the teacher Nari had reached Earth with her 17 survivors. These children, who had escaped through maintenance tunnels while their friends died, were now the most protected humans in existence. Guards watched them around the clock. Psychologists helped them process their trauma. And news cameras broadcast their faces across human space, reminding everyone why the silence would end. On the 72nd hour, Fleet Admiral Bora stood before a broadcast camera. Her uniform was perfect. Her face was calm. Behind her, through the window, thousands of warships were visible, moving into formation. She spoke clearly and slowly. "To the Valorian Empire and all species of this galaxy, this is Fleet Admiral Bora, Supreme Commander of all human military forces. I am transmitting this message once. Listen carefully." She paused, letting her words settle. 3 days ago, your empire murdered 800,000 of our children. You broadcast their deaths as a lesson. You thought this would break us. You were wrong. Her eyes seemed to look through the camera directly at High Commander Dreth. "We are giving every species in this galaxy exactly 30 days to evacuate all systems bordering human space. Every ship, every station, every living being. 30 days. After that deadline passes, we will begin our response." She leaned slightly forward. "This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a warning. What comes after the 30 days will be something this galaxy has never witnessed. We suggest you run." The broadcast ended. In the Valorian capital, High Commander Dreth laughed when he saw the message. His officers laughed with him. Humans threatening the Empire? These emotional creatures who wept over their dead? They had 50,000 warships ready to crush any human resistance. But not everyone laughed. In the neutral Keth Collective, Ambassador Trill watched the broadcast with growing fear. She was old, wise, and she knew something the Valorians did not. She had studied human history. She had read about a city called Hiroshima. She had read about how humans, when pushed too far, had destroyed their own kind with weapons of terrible power. She had read about every war in human history, and she had noticed a pattern. Every enemy who underestimated human emotion had been completely destroyed. "Begin evacuation of all border systems," she ordered her staff. "Immediately." "Ambassador?" her aide asked, confused. Trill looked at the frozen image of Fleet Admiral Bora on screen. She saw something in those eyes that the Valorians had missed. "The Valorians think human love is weakness," Trill said quietly. "They are about to learn it is something far more dangerous." The 30 days began. Across the galaxy, species watched and waited. Some laughed at humanity's warning. Some quietly packed their belongings and left. The Valorian Empire, confident in their power, did neither. Instead, High Commander Dreth assembled the largest fleet in Imperial history. 50,000 warships gathered at the border of human space. Each ship was massive, built with technology refined over 10,000 years. Their weapons could crack moons. Their shields could withstand nuclear fire. The Valorians looked at this armada and saw inevitable victory. "Let them come," Dreth announced to his captains. "We will crush them and take their worlds. Their women will serve in our households. Their men will work in our mines." "This is the natural order." His officers cheered. They had never lost a war. They could not imagine losing now. But strange things were happening throughout the galaxy. The Keth Collective, normally neutral in all conflicts, had evacuated 12 star systems in the first week. Their ambassador Trill had personally overseen the withdrawal of every Keth citizen from anywhere near human space. When the Valorian ambassador demanded an explanation, Trill simply said, "We wish to observe from a safe distance." The Rin Trading Federation, merchants who dealt with every species, had quietly canceled all contracts involving the Valorian Empire. Their ships now refused to enter Valorian space. When asked why, they would only say, "Bad for business." Even within the Empire itself, cracks were appearing. 2 of the 12 member species, the Morkai and the Tendu, had begun withdrawing their ships from Dreth's Grand Fleet. They gave excuses about internal matters and border disputes. But the truth was simpler. Their intelligence officers had intercepted human communications and had seen what was coming. On Earth, the preparations continued. Admiral Kang Tae-woo had been given command of a special assault group. These were volunteers only, soldiers who had lost family in the massacre. Every member of his crew had someone to avenge. They trained without rest, pushing themselves beyond normal limits. Tae-woo kept Yuna's photograph in his uniform pocket, over his heart. He touched it before every meeting, every meal, every moment of sleep. He no longer dreamed of wheat fields and butterflies. He dreamed only of justice. Fleet Commander Daeho spent the 30 days reviewing attack plans. His flagship, 800,000 Voices, had been equipped with weapons that made seasoned officers go pale when they saw them. The Lazarus swarms were loaded in special containment units. The grief cannons were calibrated and tested. Everything was ready. Captain Gina led training exercises that pushed her pilots to their limits. She was ruthless, demanding perfection in every maneuver. Her pilots understood. They had seen the names painted on their ships. They would not fail those children. Dr. Wu Hana worked without sleep, fine-tuning the weapons she had hoped would never be used. She was haunted by what she was unleashing, but every time doubt crept in, she watched the broadcast again. She watched children crying for their parents. She watched the moment the shooting began. Then she returned to her work with steady hands. On the 15th day, Fleet Admiral Bora gave a speech to the assembled fleet. 200,000 human warships floated in formation, more than humanity had ever gathered in one place. Every crew member, every officer, every pilot watched her broadcast. "In 15 days we begin," she said. "Some of you have asked what our objective is. Our objective is simple. We will make certain that no species ever harms a human child again. Not through treaties, not through diplomacy, through absolute certainty of what will happen if they try. She paused, her eyes hard as stone. The Valorians think we are weak because we love. They think our emotions make us easy to break. They are about to learn the truth. There is nothing in this universe more dangerous than a human who has lost someone they love. We do not fight despite our grief. We fight because of it. In her quarters, Nari watched the speech with the 17 children she had saved. They were all together now, living in a protected facility on Earth. The oldest was 11. The youngest was 4. They had nightmares every night. They asked about their friends who did not escape. Nari did not have answers for them. She could only hold them when they cried. One of the children, a boy named Junho, asked her a question one night. "Teacher, will the bad aliens hurt us again?" Nari looked at him, this small boy who had crawled through dark tunnels while his classmates died. She thought about lying, about giving him comfortable words. But children deserved truth. "No," she said firmly. "They will never hurt any human child again. Our people will make sure of that." Junho nodded slowly. He seemed to accept this. The 30th day arrived. High Commander Dreth received a final message from Fleet Admiral Bora. It was short, only 10 words. "The 30 days have passed. You did not run." Dreth laughed and deleted the message. He ordered his fleet to advance into human space. 50,000 warships moved forward, a wall of metal and fire that stretched across light years. They expected to find human colonies trembling in fear. They found empty space. Every human civilian had been evacuated. Every colony, every station, every outpost sat abandoned. The Valorians pushed forward, confused but encouraged. Perhaps the humans had fled entirely. Perhaps they had finally broken. Then the sensors detected something. It started as a small blip, almost invisible. Then another, then 1,000, then 1,000,000. Dreth stared at his tactical display as the blips multiplied. The entire space around his fleet was filling with contacts, not ships, something smaller, something that moved like a swarm of insects. "What is that?" he demanded. His sensor officer answered with a trembling voice. "Sir, they appear to be self-replicating weapon platforms. They are consuming nearby asteroids and building more of themselves. Their numbers are doubling every 4 minutes." The swarm had begun, and behind it, 200,000 human warships appeared from hidden positions, their weapons already charging. The war had begun. The Lazarus swarms hit the Valorian fleet like a metal storm. Each unit was tiny, no bigger than a human fist. But there were billions of them, and they moved with terrible purpose. They did not shoot or explode. They landed on Valorian hulls and began eating. Their micro-factories consumed metal, processed it, and built 2 more units from everyone. The ships screamed as holes appeared in their armor. High Commander Dreth watched in horror as 3 of his largest battleships were reduced to floating skeletons in minutes. The swarms crawled over them like insects on a corpse, stripping away layer after layer of advanced technology. "Fire everything!" Dreth screamed. "Destroy them!" His fleet opened fire with every weapon they had. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles exploded in bright flowers of destruction. For every 1,000 swarm units destroyed, 10,000 more appeared. The asteroids around them were shrinking as the swarms consumed them for raw material. Then the human fleet arrived. Admiral Kang Tae-woo led the first wave. His assault group punched through the confused Valorian formation like a spear through flesh. His ship was old, a relic from his active service days that he had demanded for this battle. He flew it himself, hands steady on the controls, Yuna's photograph taped to his console. "All units," he spoke calmly into his communicator. "Target their command ships. Leave no officers alive." His group tore through a dozen Valorian vessels in the first 10 minutes. The enemy was fighting on two fronts now, swarms eating them from outside while human weapons cracked them from within. Fleet Commander Dae Ho brought 800,000 voices into the heart of the battle. His flagship was massive, rebuilt specifically for this war, carrying weapons that had been sealed away for generations. He watched his tactical display and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Deploy the grief cannons," he ordered. "Target their troop transports." The grief cannons fired invisible beams that passed through shields and armor as if they did not exist. They did not damage ships. They damaged minds. Every soldier hit by these weapons fell into a neural loop, trapped in the worst moment of their lives, experiencing it over and over forever. The Valorian troop transports went silent. Inside, thousands of soldiers lay screaming, minds locked in endless nightmares. They would never wake up. Captain Gina led her fighter wing against the Valorian carrier groups. She was everywhere at once, her ship dancing between enemy fire, her weapons finding targets with perfect accuracy. The names of her twin sons were painted on her wings. She whispered them like a prayer as she fought. "For you," she said each time a Valorian ship exploded. "For you." The battle lasted 3 days. By the end of the first day, the Valorians had lost 15,000 ships. By the end of the second day, they had lost 30,000 more. Their grand fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being dismantled piece by piece. High Commander Dreth tried to retreat. He ordered his remaining ships to fall back to Valorian space. But the humans had anticipated this. Jump points were blocked by minefields. Escape routes were covered by waiting ambush groups. There was nowhere to run. On the third day, Dreth's flagship Eternal Dominion was surrounded. His shields were failing. His weapons were dry. Around him, the last 100 ships of his once mighty fleet burned in the void. Fleet Admiral Bora's face appeared on his screen. "High Commander," she said, her voice flat and empty. "Do you remember what you said before you killed our children? You said you would teach us our place. You said you would break our spirit forever." Dreth could not speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came. "We do not break," Bora continued. "We were forged in fire long before we met your kind. We have fought ourselves, destroyed ourselves, rebuilt ourselves. Every enemy who has tried to break humanity has become ash and memory. You are no different." She leaned forward, her eyes burning. "Surrender your ship, stand trial for your crimes. Or we will demonstrate what happens to those who harm our children." Dreth looked around his ruined bridge. His officers were dead or dying. His fleet was gone. His empire's power was shattered. He had gambled everything on the belief that humans were weak, and he had lost. "I surrender," he whispered. The battle was over, but the war was not. Human forces pushed deep into Valorian space over the following weeks. They were not cruel. They did not target civilians. They destroyed only military installations, only weapons factories, only the tools of war. But they were thorough. Every shipyard was reduced to slag. Every military base was dismantled. Every weapon larger than a sidearm was confiscated and melted down. The 12 species of the Valorian Empire watched their military might disappear. Some tried to resist and were crushed. Others surrendered immediately and were treated fairly. The humans wanted only one thing, to make certain this could never happen again. Admiral Taewoo personally led the mission to rescue the 17 surviving children from the massacre. They had been kept on Earth during the war, protected and cared for. Now they were brought to meet the fleet, to see that their friends had been avenged. Nari brought them to the observation deck of 800,000 voices. They stood together looking out at the stars, watching human ships patrol what had once been Valorian territory. "Is it over?" Junho asked quietly. Taewoo knelt down to look the boy in the eyes. This child was the same age Yuna had been. He had the same innocent questions, the same need for reassurance. "Yes," Taewoo said, his voice gentle for the first time in months. "It is over." And no one will ever hurt you again, I promise. Junho nodded. Then, without warning, he hugged the old admiral. Tae-woo froze for a moment, then his arms wrapped around the small body, and for the first time since Yuna's death, tears fell from his eyes. Around them, the crew of 800,000 voices stood in silence, watching their commander hold a child and weep. No one said a word. They understood. The war was over. Now came the harder part. Justice. The trial of High Commander Dreth was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. He stood in a human court, surrounded by guards, facing judges from 12 different species. The Valorians had wanted to try him themselves, hoping for mercy from their own kind. Humanity refused. This trial would be public, fair, and final. For 6 weeks, evidence was presented. Recordings of Dreth ordering the massacre. Communications showing he had planned it for months. Testimonies from survivors who had watched their children die. The 17 children who escaped gave their statements through video, their small faces filling screens across the galaxy. Dreth tried to defend himself. He spoke of military necessity, of teaching lessons, of the natural order of species. His words rang hollow in the courtroom. Even the Valorian representatives present could not meet his eyes. When the verdict came, no one was surprised. Guilty on 800,000 counts of murder, guilty on crimes against humanity, guilty on crimes against all civilized species. The sentence was unique. Dreth and every officer who had participated in the massacre would not be executed. Death was too simple. Instead, they would be subjected to the same weapons they had forced humanity to create. Grief cannons would trap them in neural loops, experiencing the fear and pain of the children they killed. Forever. Some in the galaxy called this cruel. Fleet Admiral Bora responded to their criticism personally. We offered them mercy they did not offer our children. We gave them a trial they denied to innocence. Now they will understand what they did. Every second of every day, for as long as their bodies survive, they will know exactly what it felt like to be a child facing death. This is not cruelty. This is education. The Valorian Empire collapsed within a year. Without their military, without their leadership, without the fear that had held them together, the 12 species drifted apart. Some joined other coalitions. Some became independent. 2 species, the Morkai and the Tendu, who had withdrawn their ships before the battle, were allowed to establish peaceful relations with humanity. Fleet Admiral Bora addressed the galaxy one final time. She announced the creation of new laws, backed by human military power. These laws were simple. Any species that harmed human civilians, especially children, would face the complete destruction of their military capability. No negotiations, no second chances. No mercy. We did not want this power, Bora said. We wanted peace. We wanted to raise our children under alien stars and share the wonders of the universe with them. You took that innocence from us. Now you will live with what we have become. The galaxy listened. The galaxy remembered. On Elysium 7, now renamed Memorial, construction began on the largest monument in human history. 800,000 crystal pillars rose from the ground where the massacre had occurred. Each pillar was 10 feet tall, clear as water, containing a holographic image of a child. Their names were carved at the base. Their dreams, recorded from school journals and family videos, played on endless loops. The wheat fields were replanted around the memorial. Yuna's pillar stood near the edge, where she could forever see the butterflies she had loved to chase. Admiral Kang Tae-woo retired for the 2nd time. He built a small house near the memorial and spent his days tending a garden around Yuna's pillar. He planted her favorite flowers, the purple ones she had picked for her grandmother's grave. Each morning, he would sit beside the crystal column and talk to his granddaughter about his day. The other survivors visited often. Dr. Wu Hana came to ask forgiveness from the children for the weapons she had unleashed. Captain Gina brought flowers for her twins, whose pillars stood side by side. Fleet Commander Deho walked among the rows in silence, reading every name, memorizing every face. Nari became the keeper of the memorial. She and the 17 survivors lived in a small community nearby, welcoming visitors from across the galaxy. Species who had once mocked humanity now came to pay respects, to understand, to learn. Junho grew into a young man there, surrounded by the memory of friends he had lost. On his 18th birthday, he gave a speech that was broadcast throughout human space. "They killed my friends to teach humanity fear," he said, standing among the crystal pillars. "Instead, they taught the galaxy what humanity becomes when you take our children. We do not forgive, we do not forget, but we also do not become what they were. We build memorials instead of empires. We protect instead of conquer. This is what makes us human." Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The memorial on Elysium 7 became the most visited site in the known galaxy. Schools brought students to see it. Diplomats were required to walk among the pillars before signing treaties with humanity. New species, emerging from their home worlds for the first time, were told the story of what had happened there. And the lesson held. 300 years after the massacre, a distant empire called the Krath Dominion discovered human space. Their military commanders, aggressive and confident, suggested a swift strike against human colonies to establish dominance. Their emperor considered the proposal. Then his advisors showed him the memorial broadcasts. They showed him the recordings of the Valorian War. They showed him what had happened to High Commander Dreth, still alive somewhere, still trapped in endless nightmare. The emperor was silent for a long time. "Send them a message," he finally said. "We wish to establish peaceful trade relations, offer them our finest goods as gifts, and make certain, absolutely certain, that no Krath soldier ever comes within 1 light year of a human child." His advisors obeyed. On Elysium 7, the wheat fields swayed in the wind. The crystal pillars caught the light of twin suns, casting rainbows across the golden grain. Children from across the galaxy played in the fields, laughing and chasing butterflies, watched over by humans who would never let harm come to them. Kang Tae-woo had passed away decades ago, buried beside his garden, beside Yuna's pillar. But his words, carved into a stone at the memorial's entrance, remained. They thought our love made us weak. They learned it made us eternal. Sleep well, little ones. You are safe now. You are safe forever. And so they were.